everyone, it's Nicole and today I'm going to talk about Radio Silence by Oseman, which is a book that I devoured. I loved it to pieces. As I said in my main June wrap-up, I really wanted to make a review and a book talk for this book because I found it absolutely brilliant. And also I feel like you need to know my opinions over every single detail that happened in it. Maybe you don't have to know about it, but I feel like you do. Okay? Anyway, this book came highly recommended, especially from other queer booktubers that I trust. It does have a bunch of queer characters in it, and I was extra excited about it because of it too. But it should be stated that I also love the idea behind the synopsis. It is about a girl named Frances Javier who lives in UK and is in high school. She is in her last year of high school, to be exact, and everyone knows her as a big nerd. She always dedicated herself to studying and she feels like that's the thing that she does the best. And even though she has friends, they don't know the real her. They know her as Frances, who is always with a nose in a book and not the fun kind of book. She does all that to have an opportunity to apply to a good college, and she doesn't even need pushing from other people because her mom is pretty laid back about that. But one day her only hobby that no one knows about finally comes through. She likes drawing fan art for this podcast called Radio Silence. The creator of the show contacts her on Twitter, I believe, and asks her if she wants to work on the official drawings for the show. And she of course agrees because that's the opportunity of a lifetime in her eyes. She doesn't expect though that the creator of the podcast is an actual person that she knows. They become amazing friends and Frances comes out of her shell, but the whole time, the whole journey, he is concerned that he's going to be outed as the creator of Radio Silence, which is one of his biggest fears. There's a lot of layers to this book and I won't be able to tell you everything about it without spoiling it. So I will just tell you the reasons why I loved it and why I stayed late at night to try finish this book as soon as possible. So Frances is mixed race and she's bisexual. She is an incredibly realistic and relatable character. I recognize myself in a lot of places. She does have friends, which I find very realistic because most people have some kind of a social connection. In school, at the job, maybe they are not the best friends with these people, but they talk and they know each other to a certain degree. That's what made a startling difference for me when it comes to all the other books about nerds, because it always seems like nerdy people don't talk to other people at all. Even introverts have friends. It's not uncommon. So I loved Frances. I loved that she had a very close relationship with her mother. I could tell that their relationship is so wholesome. And I loved the idea of her becoming herself through finding people that share her interests, which is something that we do in real life. There is a great asexual and gay rep in this novel as well, and you'll be surprised to know that it didn't even take a romantic relationship to express all that. There is a romantic relationship in the background of this novel, but it is not about it. So the main focus is on the friendship between Frances and the creator of the podcast. I'm not sure if the synopsis mentions his name, so I won't spoil you, just in case. I loved this friendship though. I think this is one of the best friendships I've seen in books. First of all, it's a friendship between a boy and a girl, which rarely happens, and it is such a beautiful relationship. They complement each other, they are genuinely interested in each other, they want to do each other good, and I appreciate it. This novel is very much about finding your path, and it is about having good friends that are help on this path. It is about standing up to adversity. It is about chosen family. And these are all the buzzwords I'm very excited about in any work of fiction. The drama and the tension were beautifully introduced into the story. I want to praise Alice Oseman for writing suspense in such masterful way. I literally clenched my butt cheeks every few pages because I wanted these characters to have a happy ending. And that's a contemporary novel. You usually have high stakes in fantasy, even though the fantasy genre watered down a little bit and we don't have this many high stakes fantasy novels anymore. But still, for a contemporary novel, it's unusual. I love the message behind the book. I think it's very healthy. And I love the group of people that Alice Oseman decided to make friends. So that's everything that I wanted to tell you about the book without spoiling it. Now we're going to discuss all the spoilers, everything that actually went down in the book. So if you really want to read this book and you don't want to be spoiled, exit this video because I'm going to start spoiling you in 1, 2, 3 seconds. I genuinely love this character so much. Alad and Frances were written so well as friends. You would never ship them as a couple unless you're a sick person. I think that they complement each other so well and they flourish when they are together. And it is a beautiful thing to witness. I admire Frances for sticking up for her friends, for not giving up on Alad. When I started reading about Alad, I quickly realized that he's going to be another sad queer boy that is going to invade my old rusty lesbian heart and live there. I knew that I'm going to fall in love with him. I knew that he has a tragic past, most definitely. At the start of the novel we get the information about Caris, who is Alad's sister and who had an odd relationship with Frances. They constantly took the same train to school, and even though Alad and Frances never talked at that point, Caris and Frances were pretty close. Caris told Frances all her secrets, and Frances even had a crush on her. And when I read it, I didn't even understand why it is mentioned, because it didn't seem to fit the narrative yet. But then all the pieces started falling into place. Caris, in some way, in the first part of the novel was portrayed as a manic pixie dream girl, and I didn't know if it's going to carry into the second part, but the novel surprised me because it actually held Frances accountable for what she'd done. As we know, Caris had trouble at home. She didn't really tell Frances what it is about, but Caris was never a good student, so she got a lot of bad grades, and someone in her family wasn't really happy about it. So she was brooding a lot over this issue. And Frances was listening, she was empathizing, but when Caris was finally thrown over the edge, Frances thought that the best way to comfort her is to kiss her, which is the dumbest thing that you can do, really. Especially because you don't know if this person is attracted to you, do they need this attention? And I didn't think it's going to be addressed. I thought Frances is going to carry this shameful secret with her because she does feel bad about it. She feels that it's the reason why Caris ran away, and she doesn't want to tell anyone, especially Alad, who is missing his twin sister. But the conflict inside her grows bigger and bigger and bigger, and finally she has to tell, and finally she has to address that. First with Alad, and then she actually gets a scene with Caris and they talk about it, which was extremely nice. I also loved that they didn't get together because Caris kisses her and tells her that it's okay, that she's not mad that Frances kissed her that time. And it doesn't grow into anything more. It would have been pretty cheesy and unrealistic this way. Plus, I don't think that the message that Frances was wrong in this situation would have been starkly clear otherwise. Let's talk about Aled, Daniel, and Frances though, because I feel like we can't really talk about Aled and Daniel separately, because Frances is a big part of their dynamic and relationship. Well, she becomes a big part of this dynamic. We don't know at first what Daniel's and Aled's relationship is like, but we were given hints that they spent a lot of time together, and I sort of felt like something else was going on. They were pretty close. Daniel, who's a stuck-up with other people, acted very differently around Aled. And the more we know about Aled, the more understanding we get that Daniel and Aled can't be just friends, especially after Frances spends the night at Aled's house and Daniel is with them as well. We get snapshots of that night and we know through the eyes of Frances that Aled and Daniel have a heated argument, and then they go to sleep, and then when she wakes up again, she sees that Aled is crying. I thought that they were a couple at this point and that they were breaking up for some reason. Maybe it's college related, because we know at that point that Daniel wants to get into a great school and Aled is not very enthusiastic about college in general. They slowly grow apart and Frances starts questioning why. Daniel acts very odd and he even confronts Frances a little bit and tells her that Aled spends all his time with you now. There must be something going on between you. Which is interesting, especially with the information that we get further. Honestly, my heart was breaking for all parties. I could see myself in Frances' shoes. She wanted to get along with everyone. She wanted everything to be the same. She didn't want to be standing between them. But at the same time, Aled didn't want to get back with Daniel. We don't know what happened. Or talk to Daniel. So she couldn't just push him into his arms. We also get Aled, who in general is very confused through the whole book. And there's also Daniel, whom I didn't empathize with at first. But then there's the scene in the novel where he comes out from the college interview. He's just not himself. Frances starts talking to him, and at first they speak about the interview, but then Aled starts popping up more and more in this dialogue, and we get to see the full scope of pain that Daniel experiences because Aled doesn't want to talk to him and explain why they broke up, why they don't talk anymore. And my heart was breaking into tiny little pieces. I felt for him so hard. Being ghosted after a long-term relationship doesn't feel nice, I suspect. It is just brutal. I was weeping like a baby. From that moment when all his defenses cracked, I just fell in love with Daniel. I fell in love with him. And I won't hide it, I blamed Aled a little bit. He didn't want to come out as demisexual and to solve the issues in their relationship, because the issues were solvable, and he didn't want to get into that. And I understand why, because he was pressured to get into college and he didn't want to get into college. Everything that he loved was being taken away from him. But at the same time, he was pushing two people that were his actual friends and wanted only the good things for him, because he was afraid of being hurt. And he was hurting enough already. So it's a very difficult position to be in, I understand. We're going to leave Aled to the last though. I would like to speak a little bit about Reina, who is an absolute babe. When I was reading about her, I was crushing. I was like, Reina, ring me up, take me out on a date. You are perfect. She is so enigmatic and her charisma is out of this space. I was surprised that she and Frances didn't get together because I felt a vibe. I felt it a little bit. I didn't want it to ruin the focus on the platonic relationships though, but a small hint that they're getting together at the end, it would have been a nice touch, I think. Anyway, she's a boss, she's a queen, she's amazing, I love her so much. And now let's talk a little bit about Alad, who was one of the most mysterious characters alongside Caris. I realized the irony of making the twins the most mysterious and secretive because it's a huge stereotype. But I actually enjoyed it in this book. I didn't even notice it until I started analyzing it. Alad seems to be such a light and nerdy and fun character at first. But as we go into the novel, little details start popping up. And as I mentioned before, Alice Oseman is the queen of suspense. She drops little clues. They are tiny little clues. And you start thinking, am I imagining it? Maybe I've read too many dark things in my life. Maybe I'm just trying to darken something light and pure and beautiful. But no, at first we think that he's only sad, a little sad, but then the real feelings come out to the surface and we get to see how devastated and how scared he is about the well-being of his sister, how much he wants to know where she is. He dedicated the whole podcast to her, and his cry for freedom was written into every word. And I loved that everything was tied together in the end because the whole podcast, every reference in it, every character that was introduced to it was the mirror of his own life. But the disappearance of his sister is not the only thing that bothers him. Frances picks up little crumbs. At first she realizes that Alad never introduced her to his mother. And she thinks that maybe he's ashamed of her, or maybe it's not weird, maybe it just didn't happen yet. But then she actually meets his mother, and there's a certain way she says things and certain things she does that come off in a very odd way. And I say odd because Frances at first doesn't realize what is wrong with them. She just feels unsettled. The best scene, in my opinion, in the whole book is when a lad grew his hair a little too long and his mother snapped it off without him allowing it. The darkness of the scene is astonishing. The way it was written, the tiny little details, the fact that Frances is there, how it brings into light that Alad's mother is a horrible person, how she's controlling and abusive, and how Alad, oh my god, I'm crying again, and how Alad is just trying to survive in this house. And from that moment, there's so many scenes where his mother is showing her true face. When she kills his dog, I was so shocked to read it, but at the same time it was not unexpected at all. So by this point we know that he wants to run away, and the only way for him to run is to run to university, which he doesn't want to attend because his podcast was basically a cry for help. And he actually does go to university, and it turns out horribly for him. He doesn't eat, he's depressed, and he pushed away all of his friends. The last journey that they take together is the most beautiful journey, and bless friends like that, because they are rare. Not everyone is going to go at such length for you, but these are the real friends. I love that this book portrayed real friends and real friendship and things that you should expect from friends. I genuinely love this novel so much and I highly recommend it. I don't regret the time that I spent on it. It became one of my favorite books, which is not surprising at all because it did have the potential to be my favorite. If you read this book, you can discuss it with me in the comments. Thank you for watching this video. I hope to see you soon in my next one. Bye!